nerds? My name is Leslie Smith and welcome to the Nerdy Narrative. On this channel, I like to talk to you about all of the things that I am reading. And I read in tons of different genres. And I read a lot. And because I read a lot, I love to have a variety of different books that I'm reading. I usually read like 4 to 5 at a time. And I just spice it up. I like reading science fiction, fantasy, horror, manga, comics, short stories, nonfiction, literary fiction, classics. I love all of the things. Plus, the more you experiment in different genres, you get to see how the authors from these genres influence and inspire others. It's fantastic. I highly encourage it. But today's episode of fun, we are going to be talking in the horror genre. Not like scary horror, but maybe on the thriller side of the spectrum. The book that I'm talking about is Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones. Even if you're new to the channel, I almost guarantee you've been around long enough to hear me talk about Stephen Graham Jones and how much I love this author. I have loved everything I've read by him. I've only read 4 books so far, but I have a stack of his other works behind me with plans to read those throughout the next year. I am working through all of his work. It's all so different, so unique. No 2 stories have been the same. While it may have the same trope theme, like a slasher, he loves slashers. He loves vampires and werewolves and things of that nature. So it may have that trope, but each story is so unique unto itself, whether it be the way that it is told or presented or just with a different twist. And Stephen Graham Jones is just a fantastic storyteller, just wonderful. And what's so crazy about his writing style is that differs as well. The Only Good Indians and My Heart is a Chainsaw, those were very similar in their writing style. Yet The Least of My Scars and Mongrels, completely different. I would never have guessed it was the same author if I hadn't known, just based off the writing style. Now, just the caliber of story, definitely. Stephen Graham Jones is an auto-buy. He is an author I trust. I know that I'm going to love everything he writes. Now, I do have to say, of all the books I've read by him so far, which have all been 5 stars, this one is just a 4-star for me. It's not my favorite of his works. Now, 4 stars is still a fantastic book. So me saying it's my least favorite so far, don't let that detract from the fact that it was an amazing story. Amazing story. I loved it. It is told from the main character's point of view. And in some chapters, you are the outsider looking in and being told about the main characters. And I found that I really enjoy that style of writing. It's very interesting. And while it doesn't flip-flop every chapter, it's just every few chapters, it's just enough to just kind of give it that little bit of to keep you engaged. Enough gushing about Stephen Graham Jones. We all know how much I love him, and I'm so glad he's so prolific because I feel like I'm going to get to enjoy his writing for years, and it's going to take me a little while to get through the 50 things he's already written. But let's talk about Mongrels. So I have the paperback edition, which came out in 2017 by Morrow Publishing. And this was actually a gift to me from my friend Justin. Justin is a reviewer on Instagram. I met him over in Brad Proctor's Discord, where a lot of us who love horror, we get over there and just have a lot of fun talking and networking about all the things that we read. And he sent this to me for my birthday. So Justin, again, thank you so much. This is one I am so happy to have in my collection because I just love it. I love the colors. The very bright yellow, just offset with the red and the werewolf on the cover. The stark primary colored covers just really stand out on my beautiful black bookshelves. A non-spoiler inkling of the plot. As you can tell from the title, Mongrels, you see the werewolf on the front. It tells you all of that in the blurb. It's not described as a coming of age story, but to me, it definitely feels like one. The main character who tells the story is a child when we first meet him. And it just starts out with him listening to stories from his grandfather. And just like any grandfather would do, the stories he tells are very embellished. And they're always about werewolves. And the grandfather is trying to convince his grandson that he's a werewolf. Their whole family are werewolves. They all have the blood. While his aunt and uncle are like rolling their eyes. The grandfather tells him all of these tales of the werewolf lore and warnings about things to do and not to do. A bit of that lore is even if you are the child of a werewolf, that blood may never come forward. You may never actually shift. You don't know that until later when you hit puberty or a little bit further into your teenage years. So you never know if you're going to shift or not. Hence, mongrel. You're possibly this mixture of human and werewolf. And as you're growing up, you never know, am I going to shift? Am I not going to shift? So it's difficult for the child to know how to identify. Do I need to identify as human and just live like that's how my life is going to go, and I just need to find my place in this human world and a career path and follow it? Or would that be a waste of time because halfway through I'm going to shift and become a werewolf and then live my life on the road and dealing with all of what that could entail? And it's just told in a very down-to-earth way. Werewolves in this story, the tales that are told, are not glorified. They are not all in positions of wealth. They're nomads. They have no home. They're always on the run. They are looked down upon. They do not get along with each other. It's almost like the families just stick to their immediate family and that's it. And they never really feel a part of the werewolf world or the human world. And the whole time I'm reading this, I'm like, are all of these werewolf tales, is it an allegory? Or is it real? Like in this book, is he really a werewolf? Is he going to change? And it just really kept me turning these pages. One thing that got to me, one thing I did not like, I understand it is a book about werewolves. There are things that happen. There is a lot of animal death. A lot of animal death. I didn't like it. I understand that wolves, like real wolves, hunt. They eat other animals. I get it. But I don't like it. I don't care what kind of animal it is. I don't want to read about an animal dying. Now, you may not be that way, but I am. I don't know why. Kill all the people you want in your book, but don't kill an animal. For some reason, that just gets to me. And there were a lot of things talked about animal dying that I just did not care for. And if you're like me and you don't care for that, this is me telling you, it's still a great story. This one has tons of reread capability for me, because honestly, I read it at face value. But one thing I've learned about Stephen Graham Jones, there's always a light underlying theme that is in his stories. And I didn't quite catch what that is in this one, or I haven't quite formed my opinion of what it is. Well, I kind of have an idea of what I think it may be. Talking about mongrels, you're mixed blood, you don't belong in either world, or you don't know which world you want to try to fit into, and they don't know how to identify, or they know how they want to identify but feel like the world says no, you can't do that. This is where you need to fit if you want to be accepted. That's the beauty of reading these books. It's completely subjective to what stands out to you. So I'll definitely reread it and see what comes forward for me in the story the next time I read it. I did listen to a small portion on audiobook. It was so good that when I started it, I didn't pick up any of my other books to read mixed in like I normally do. I started it and I stayed with it until I finished it. So when I had to walk the dogs or cook or clean the kitchen, I used one of my Audible credits to get the audiobook. I wasn't the biggest fan of the narrators. They weren't terrible by any means. I think I've just listened to so much Frank Muller and Stephen Pacey lately that I'm a little spoiled on how well they bring their stories to life. That is going to do it for my thoughts and opinions regarding Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones. I think it is definitely worth picking up and checking out, whether it be from your library or on Audible, or if you're like me and you love Stephen Graham Jones, I definitely do not think you will regret picking this one up. If you're someone who has read this book and you want to have a more in-depth discussion about it, I do have a link to my Discord in the description box down below. I have a channel set up for Mongrels. Come on over, let's chat about it. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you think you might be interested in checking this book out, please let me know in the comments down below so I can track your progress and then message you to talk to you about this book once you read it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that little like button. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already and you think this might be a fun home for you to check in and see what all I am reading. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.